would have been good. That would have been a good one. So yeah, basically we'll talk about Indy, the 600, get a little Monaco talk in there, and just kind of discuss kind of feelings of what those races mean to us and what they have meant, great moments, memories, and kind of get into them briefly because I know our shows go long, so I don't want us to go so long that it gets ridiculous. Um, and maybe I was gonna say to Josh if we wanted to do something else later in the week, kind of as kind of a real preview show of sorts of those races, maybe if we have time. But that's something that we can see if we have time to coordinate either amongst us as a group or just me and Josh. But I think that would be a good idea too. We could do a two episodes this week. It makes sense for how big the weekend is, and for some of the bullshit that went on this past weekend too, especially in NASCAR and Formula One. So
You just need to find out who Drake's betting on for Monaco, and then bet on everybody else but that. Because somebody said he bet like 230 grand on Leclerc.
yep. Hopefully he puts.
Did he?
Hopefully he puts like. Yeah, he did.
I did not know this.
And then he did that. I saw that on Twitter that he bet 230 grand on Charles Leclerc, and he has a power unit and turbo failure while leading and was going to win the race and lost the penalty.
It's another Drake curse. One of my
That's-
friends.
Can he just bet on Max Verstappen the rest of the year? That'd be great. It would make life a whole lot easier. Lewis might actually come back at that point.
I'm still mad at Lando for screwing himself out of a win in Russia last year.
Yeah, well, that was more. I think that was more his team. He had done everything right. If anything, I would be more mad about him going and crashing at Spa when you consider the farcical race that happened. If he had literally just kept his car on track, he would have won pole. He'd have won the race.
Come on, who could have seen that they were going to do that the next day, though?
Yeah, well, who should have allowed them to go out there in monsoon conditions in today's cars to go out there and have him go and try to eat it in Eau Rouge, which is why they've reconfigured it again and they have way more runoff area. I feel bad for him because the reality is Daniel Ricciardo looks like a trinket salesman now, and he lost to him at the Italian Grand Prix. Like Lando probably should have a Formula One win or 2 or 3 by now. But to be honest, as a Lewis guy, we needed those points because in the end, Max Verstappen got sent to tailback and somehow finished second after all of that, and he still got screwed out of the World Championship. But I'm not mad about that.
Right.
All right, so let me just get a couple of things and we'll get started. Talk amongst yourselves.
So you thinking Spencer for the 500?
Like I said, I took Pelot in the preseason, and mostly because I'm stubborn, I'm sticking with that. But like I said, there's part of me that thinks Dixon may run away with this.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong about that. I mean, to be honest, I'd lean more towards Pelot. I mean, I feel like the pole-winning car, doesn't always win, and I mean, he's been fast, but I feel like a lot of that speed's been in qualifying trim, in my opinion. But we'll see what happens, and it's so hard to win, and I think Pelot probably he's probably gonna want to win the race, after what happened to him last year, finishing second. So
Well, Dixon
drives Ganassi, right?
yeah,
he drives the 10 car. Dixon and Sato were fastest in practice. And I'll talk about this more once the podcast starts. I'm kind of interested to see the end of the race, if Pelot's in contention, what he may or may not have learned from last year with Castroneves.
Yeah, he's talking about how bummed out he is in hindsight. Even though, how are you supposed to know how to drive that way when that's literally his second super speedway race or maybe third super speedway race of his career. The first one he crashed out 10 laps into it.
He didn't VK anyway.
Him and VK crashed together
Yeah.
10 laps into the race
I
in
was just
Texas.
and VK was there, and VK
Oh, wow.
crashed that day.
Yeah.
Yeah, but get the
Oh, there you
program.
go.
They talk about it, or Pelot talks about it in the program.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's plenty for us to get into. So definitely let's get her going. Am I on? Does this say I'm on sleep mode? Okay, there you go. All right, I'm back. All right, good. So Joe, you're fan-sided.
Yes.
Yeah. It's fan-sided and IndyCar 1909 for Spencer formerly of Open Wheels, which is where we connected, and that's how Josh also has a connection because he's a winner of the Indianapolis 500. We have a winner of the Indianapolis 500 amongst us.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So, yeah.
The
We're among
iRacing
the
Indy
great
500.
guys.
You did pretty good. That motor, that grip strip podcast car was running tight, running that high line.
Oh yeah.
Joe, you're Castaway on board, Joe?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't think we met, by the way, man. How you doing? I'm clearly I'm Joe.
Spencer. All right. Just making sure so I can follow you on social.
Yeah. Actually, I think what you just followed is my personal, which actually I think I'm gonna shut down in a few weeks' time. My one I tweet all my racing stuff from is Passero Jr. is my last name. Here
I'll put it in the chat.
Yeah.
I'll put it in the general chat over here. You can start sharing all our stuff.
What am I doing?
So, all right. So, and then IndyCar1909.com for you, Spencer. Anything else that you're promoting, or just strictly your website?
No, just kind of that, and my personal Twitter's Spencer Neff 11. Oh, there you go.
Okay.
Yeah, I got
you. All right, so
that's
Josh,
where I do all my crazy person NASCAR tweeting from.
Crazy person NASCAR tweeting. I just do crazy person tweeting all the time.
I don't know.
I feel like the term crazy person tweeting is kind of redundant.
Yeah, now.
I don't know. That's reserved for only some people who've made their personality that I don't think any of you guys qualify as that.
Yeah, no.
There are certain people on the racing community Twitter I think would fit that bill, but I won't name any of them.
Just the racing community, but ignore my bad jokes.
No, you're fine. You are fine. Just need to bring this up. I want to make sure, because I was so bad off this afternoon that I couldn't even. Yeah, we'll leave the outline. I think that'll be episode 116. If you're up for it, we can talk offline about it.
Yeah, we'll see.
Okay.
Yeah,
because I figure we should just keep it kind of simple.
Yeah,
and also because I already missed the Grid Talk podcast. I was supposed to make a hit on the Grid Talk podcast, and I was so bad off earlier this afternoon that I completely forgot. So I'm running really well these days, guys. So who knows where the hell this is going to end up.
All right.
I'm running as well as this guy's car has for like the last 3 months. So
I mean, yeah, you're running as well as Tony did the last 3 years of his career.
Yep. That's very valid. That's very valid. It is a low blow. I will take it because it is from you. But you're one to talk. Your guy was a trinket seller for like the last 5 years of his career, and I think he lost half his brain cells in the process. But okay, if we're gonna get all the.
Hey, Chase won at Phoenix, so.
Well, he's the new Dale Jr. That's what it is. Except he has no personality. At least Dale Jr. has some personality. Chase Elliott has no personality. He literally is.
I gotta say too, like some Chase fans are really bad. Like I don't ever remember Junior Nation being so bad. Like some Chase fans, I literally saw a tweet last night after the All-Star race. Somebody was saying that Ross should have not hit Kyle Busch solely for the fact that it would have avoided getting in a chase. Like, bro, go spot for him then. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, I don't know. Some of them are a little much.
No, it's Chase Elliott fans and Kyle Busch fans are the two worst fan bases in NASCAR by far.
Why they get their own haulers?
Yeah,
merch haulers.
They shouldn't have a merch hauler either. We could start really going down rabbit holes. They should go back to that mall. I wasn't a fan of it at first, the same way as they have the IndyCar mall, but it's way bigger. That was fine. And you could find everything. You can walk around. All the HMS people had their own little pod. The Stewart Hawk people were all kind of pushed into one because, they weren't as good at that point. Glad could have had a whole section for him, and all of his cousins and aunts and uncles could all meet together and they could have their family reunion. And then you could have all the racing drivers over here on this side selling merch, and you can have the legend section and all. You could have autograph. All right. I'm ready to go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I'm ready to throw to green. I'm getting lathered up.
All right. All right. Let's do it.
Pull them belts tight, everybody.
Pull them belts tight. Welcome to episode 115 of the Grip Strip Podcast, the greatest day in motorsports edition 2022 style, part 1. Prefacing that, hopefully to have a part 2 later this week. Doing it a little different this week compared to when we usually do our show. Of course, my co-host and now iRacing Indy 500 winner, Josh. So are we gonna have to change your intro now that you're an Indy 500 champion, Joshua Fine? Or are we just going to keep it just simple?
Yeah, I think when it comes to important things like this, yeah, you can say I'm an Indy 500 winner, but I think when regular things, we can just keep it the same. But yeah, for special things like this, yeah, now I'm a Indy 500 winner on iRacing, which still I can believe it now, but it was so stressful when it happened and everything, and it was we'll get into it later at the end, but glad that I was able to do that. And of course, you talk about this weekend in motorsports. It's motorsports Christmas, like you said, offline in the lead up to the show. I mean, you got breakfast in the morning. You eat breakfast and have your coffee or whatever, your tea or whatever, and watch Monaco, and then you can have your lunch, whatever, watch the Indy 500, and then later eat your dinner, whatever you're gonna eat for dinner, or barbecue or whatever for Memorial Day, and watch the Coca-Cola 600 and have a Coke while you're watching that, or Pepsi or whatever. So it's a great day in racing for everybody, whether you're NASCAR, F1, or IndyCar fan.
Yeah, and that's why we have 2 special guests on this week, 2 regular contributors to the podcast. We have the recovering Joe Passero from Beyond the Flag and Fansided, NASCAR insider reporter extraordinaire, recovering, but he is here, grinding like Lando Norris did yesterday in the Spanish Grand Prix. He had tonsillitis, still drove through. Joe is recovering from the vid, and he's doing this hit. So thank you, Joe, for coming on the Grip Strip Podcast again.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited. This weekend, I'm glad that for the most part everything's out of my system, because this weekend is going to be fun. We got racing in the morning, racing in the afternoon, and racing at night. From the moment you wake up to the moment you're ready to go back to bed, there's a car on track somewhere. And that, to me, is truly amazing. It's a marathon unlike anything else. On top of that, for me personally, I haven't had the opportunity to be a part of this marathon, I want to say since 2019. 2020, the schedules all got thrown out of place. 2021, I was in Charlotte for the 600, and therefore unable to watch Monaco or the 500 in Indianapolis. So I'm excited to get to celebrate this day again. I'm also excited because with NASCAR specifically, I'm seeing a lot of patriotic paint schemes. I'm excited to celebrate our country, and I'm just excited. I don't know. I feel like Clint Boyer. I'm just excited over everything that's going to be happening this weekend.
Oh, that's a low bar to set for yourself. Unless you're going to be drinking a lot of Jack Daniels or moonshine, or I'm going to leave out what I was about to say right there. It's pretty offensive. But switching over to the IndyCar side is a gentleman who we work together at openwheels.com. He has his own website now, IndyCar1909.com. He's had it for a few years. An absolute encyclopedia of open wheel knowledge. He reminds me of my buddy Josh Bolden from Facebook, who was nicknamed Googs by some old friends. I think Spencer Neff of IndyCar 1909 is like Googs because he can pull out stats. I think Donald Davidson should have hired you or something because your knowledge of the Indianapolis 500 and IndyCar racing is second to none. So we're glad that you're able to enjoy yourself and see Rinus von Kauthmuth in live and in person, and now get to join us here on the GSP once again. So thanks for coming on, Spencer.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Glad you're recovering, Joe. Josh, congratulations. Just going to throw out my opinion on this. I think you should give Josh an intro with Delta Force or Back Home Again in Indiana.
Yes,
Yeah,
Delta Force
well,
for sure.
Well, he's a technical savvy guy. I book guests. I'm like Baba Booey. So he's a Fred and I'm Baba Booey. So I
Just
can't bring the sound.
500 related music though, or
Yeah.
500 song from the Singing Hoosiers. But anyway, for the compliment, I feel like I don't think anybody followed Hendrix at Woodstock, and I'm too old for that analogy. But I feel like you telling me Donald Davidson should have me to follow him would have been, the Motorsports or IMS equivalent of following Hendrix at Woodstock. So thank you for that.
And no problem, man. There's one thing that's for sure about this show. I only bring on people that I know that know their stuff or good people. I mean, for the vast majority of the existence of the show.
Well,
The fact is that you guys know your stuff. You could carry me when I'm effing up, which is plenty. I've had this weekend's a perfect example of it. You guys have been able to be more connected in what took place, which we'll get into. We'll give you a little taste, get a few takes in there, kind of leave you wanting more, the way you should do things here in podcast world or radio world. And then also talk about what this weekend means. I mean, not just for the fallen heroes that have provided us the freedom to be able to enjoy these races again in person if you're able to go, or enjoy them on TV or through radio or whatever means you have. Being able to be with your family and your friends in a time where, very trying time that we're in as a society, but to be able to go to people and have a group discussion about just an amazing weekend of racing. I mean, Joe, you mentioned about last year. I think Monaco's a week before, which they do that sometimes. So the fact is, it wasn't. I called it, I think I prefaced this, Josh may remember better, but I prefaced this the greatest day in motorsports, and in my open, I probably muttered about Monaco not being there and cursed out F1 and Liberty Media, which I probably did. And now at least it's back where it belongs. The reality is this weekend is about, freedoms and our freedom and being able to celebrate it, and the men and women that sacrificed their lives for us. But it's also nearly 1,400 miles of racing, the biggest single day sporting event, which is in the middle of the day, basically the glitz and glamour of a country that's literally like 4 miles long, which is hilarious to me. at the start of the day, and then the biggest endurance race in NASCAR, in a time where endurance is an issue with this car and with the bad tires, which have been an issue for decades. And so, I mean, we're going to get into all that. We're going to talk about our memories of these events, getting what drew us, like those are things that drew us to this sport. And then also, get into it. Indy 500 qualifying took place. Scott Dixon ended up having the second fastest qualifying run ever, 4-lap qualifying run at Indianapolis, and the fastest pole winning time at Indianapolis because, of course, Harry Lunatic wasn't able to do it on day one. He had to qualify on day two back in 1996 to set the overall track record. It was a really fast weekend, really fast week of practice, and to see those speeds again was really cool, and how tight and compacted it is with current day IndyCar between both Honda and Chevy, and a lot of intrigue going on since Penske guys are a little further back. Scott McLaughlin pulled his time, and then Alex Rossi'd himself, and now is buried tailback. Like Stephen Wilson didn't even get to make a qualifying run, so he'll have to start dead last. Different things, different teams struggled. Ed Carpenter's team, of course, shows up. Rinus VeeKay gets another front row start, but the Ganassi cars, 4 of the 5, or all 5 made the Fast 12, and 4 of the 5 made the Fast 6. One 7-time NASCAR champion who at least 3 times last week had a chance to wipe himself out, maybe 4, but proving once again why Jim Johnson is one of the greatest wheelmen ever lived, saved his car every single time. We're going to get into that. The farce that took place at Texas Motor Speedway, we'll get into that, probably get some hot takes on that, where Ryan Blaney won, then almost lost, and then won the All-Star race. And great racing at Texas, just absolutely amazing racing at Texas, just what you expect from Texas Motor Speedway. If you like watching people shit in a coffee can and light it on fire. So there's that. And then in Red Bull, pulling team orders on Sergio Perez to make him pull over and give the win to Max Verstappen 6 races into the season, which gives him 3 straight wins in the World Championship lead, conveniently, since Drake bet $230,000, as Spencer mentioned here offline. We saw on Twitter, bet $230,000 on Charles Leclerc to win, and then the Drake curse happened again. So, yeah, we'll get into all those because those lead into these great races this weekend. So, I guess we'll start. We'll go with the Indy 500 winner first over here. Thinking about, we'll put this first question out there. So, when you think about this weekend and these races, like, what are your, like, the things that the feeling that the tradition that you like and greatest memories of these races and stuff, and then I'll throw to Spencer, Joe, and then I'll finish out.
Yeah, I mean, I think, for me, the first thing you think about it is just the the patriotic elements of it, celebrating the country, the playing of taps, with at Indianapolis, you know, all the different things, the patriotic paint schemes in NASCAR that they've ran there in the past, a lot of them very military themed, with different cars, honoring each branch of the military. I think definitely with that's been the tradition here with NASCAR and in IndyCar. I think it also kind of symbolizes, because growing up, it symbolizes the end of school. because that was always at the end of the year for school. I think we can all, growing up in America, we can all basically say that was either the end of the school year or the school had already ended. So and you knew that was like basically beginning of summer in that end. But then I think for the racing itself and everything, you get to watch like all the racing that you can, and certainly a lot of memories from the 600, because that was the first race that I grew up watching. Because I didn't really get into Indianapolis until about maybe 7 or 8 years ago, um, when kind of started to get interested in NASCAR. Not disinterested, but dissatisfied with how things were going in NASCAR with the formats and everything, with the playoffs, or formerly known as the chase and all that. But I mean, watching the 600, I mean, that was honestly probably the first race that I actually remember watching. And I remember Dale Earnhardt Jr. Having an engine problem, like the belts failed in the 2002 Coca-Cola 600. And I remember being pretty upset about that. Then I remember them talking about Jimmy Johnson, how he dominated that race but didn't win. They interviewed Robbie Gordon after his double duty in that one. With Indianapolis, and I didn't really understand like the double duty. And next year, I remember 2003. I remember like hearing about the Indy 500, and remember hearing about Elio Castroneves climbing the fence, and thought that was really cool. That was very interesting. Like, why do you do that? And so every year being able to watch that, and also being able to watch it on TV in full length when I lived in Japan, because a lot of times when I lived in Japan, like I'd only um, be able to see like half the race, because like you have to get up at like 3 a.m. and I also have school in the morning and everything. So usually dad just wakes me up at like 5:30 and the race is already halfway over or whatever. And being able to actually watch the whole race in full on Memorial Day when school's over and you had nothing to wake up for the next day on Monday, that was always looking forward to watch that. And then seeing all the winners that we had, 2007, that was a really interesting ending with everybody running out of gas. Casey Mears getting his first win, and of course, got to mention
Tony
2011.
ran out of gas.
Yeah, Tony ran out of gas too, but got to mention 2011. Dale Earnhardt Jr. had the
Yeah,
lead on
that
the
was
final
bad.
lap, and I thought it was
Horrible.
going to be the one. That was the one where we'd finally get a junior victory after 3 years, and had
You
had
and
to
me
wait.
both.
Yeah, I know you too, Joe, because you're a junior fan too, and
Yeah.
that was the big moment for me, because I remember being out at Busch Gardens in Tampa, and then lo and behold, go to one of those coin machines, or I don't remember what it was. I think it was something I purchased, and then I got a quarter or something, or like, yeah, it was a quarter that had the Indianapolis quarter on it on the back with the IndyCar symbolizing the tradition of racing in Indiana. And as the Indy 500 had already been over with, and I didn't know at the time that J.R. Hildebrand in the National Guard car had hit the wall, and that led to Dan Weldon winning the race there and everything. I didn't know that until later on when I found out watching the 600 when we got back to the hotel room. But I was like, I got that quarter, and it had the IndyCar on it and the Indianapolis state shape on there. And I looked at that, and I mean, even though it was IndyCar racing, like my dad's always like, maybe this is the day that Junior finally wins. And it got so close, man. I still that's like the one junior victory that I want back so bad that never came. So wish that one would have happened, but that's like, I mean, it's painful memory, but it's one that obviously it sticks out and everything. And just the memories of watching the 600 and everything. And I think now with the stage racing, I feel like it doesn't mean as much anymore, because you have 4 100 lap stages, and the strategy, the suspense of the race, being able to figure out like how much gas you're going to need at the end, because this is the one race in NASCAR where it ultimately end up comes down, almost always comes down to fuel mileage. And I feel like we don't really see that anymore, especially in this race, because they kind of took that element away with the way the stage racing plays out. So that's my memories of the 600, and then of course the 500, the Indy 500. Um, obviously I already mentioned part of it. The kind of like before I started paying attention to it more, but of course, remember seeing the headlines of Elio winning, and seeing him climb the fence like Spider-Man. That's why it was interesting, because that was the year that Spider-Man was released in theaters, the original one with Tobey Maguire, and then you had Elio Castroneves climbing the fence, and that's why that was interesting to me at that time. But there's always a little bit of interest, like hearing about what other people said about it and everything, and kind of like knowing some things about it, but not really paying attention to it until about 2014, 2013, when I started to kind of want to experience or diversify my racing tastes. And so, watching the Indy 500 and then watching Kurt Busch do the double, that was a lot of interest in that, hoping that maybe he could win. But of course, Ryan Hunter-Reay won that one in 2014. And then from then on, it's just been like learning and understanding the history of the Indy 500. And, ultimately, I feel like I like IndyCar racing as a whole more now than I do NASCAR. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but ultimately, I think it comes down to, the ability to see the Indy 500 or to watch it and just experience all the history, like, and understand the especially with iRacing, the strategy, and knowing how hard it is to win. And yeah, I won the iRacing Indy 500 and all that this past weekend, and it was definitely a hard thing that you have to do, and it's not easy. And I feel like with NASCAR kind of becoming very WWE like, and then on the flip side you have IndyCar, which I think they still maintain their tradition. They still maintain the authenticity as far as not manipulating things like NASCAR has been doing for the past almost decade now, and even further back than that. But it feels a lot more pure, and that's why I feel like I enjoy it a lot more. And so now every year you watch the Delta Force intros, the ones from the 90s with Paul Page. Watch those a lot, and those get me pumped for the 500, and really anything else. Like you just watch I think my favorite one's the 1992 one, because that's the one that kind of sums it all up for me. And then of course I think 1994, These Are the Eyes of Mario Andretti. That's definitely what gives me that motivation, or not motivation, but excitement to watch the Indy 500 every year. So I like how the races have played out with the strategy, and still you get an exciting finish. I mean, 2014 with Ryan Hunter-Reay, going to the grass to pass Elio Castroneves. 2015 Montoya winning after years of being in NASCAR. 16 Rossi, winning after running out of gas. 2019 with Simon Pagenaud, besting Alexander Rossi. 17, going back to 2017 with Fernando Alonso coming to America to run in the 500. And then last year's race was pretty awesome too, with the way that played out, and just the energy, I guess, being the first big event that we had after COVID and everything, with 2020, feeling the energy. I mean, you could feel the energy just watching the TV in that race last year. And it's an exciting race. And so that's I guess what sums up all my feelings, I guess, about the 500 and the 600 and everything. And didn't really mention Monaco, but I'm trying to get into it more with Formula One. But I guess with Monaco, I don't have as much, I guess, history as I do with the Indy 500 and the Coke 600.
All good. I can go and cover that part there in a little bit. But great job there, Josh. Spencer, Josh made a lot of great points, of course, about Indy, but of anybody that I know that really has a passion for the speedway and this series and this sport, I think you hit that very well. So I guess we start with that. What got you into Indianapolis style racing, and how is it kind of manifested to now you cover it and you get to meet drivers and do all this stuff, and how does that fit into this whole little realm of this great day that we're going to have on Sunday?
Well, as I'm sure I know I've mentioned to you, and I've mentioned a lot to a lot of people, especially on my social, I was born in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, right near Nazareth Speedway, right where the Andretti family's from. Um, my and we, wanted to go check it out, and I was just kind of hooked right away. Much like some kids are hooked to baseball or football or fill in the blank on any other sport or similar activity. And then like Josh, I kind of transitioned to NASCAR and monster trucks and some other sports. And around 2011, I ended up attending Purdue University, and right when I went out for my orientation, a couple days after, Mom went with me to Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and this was about a month or so after that finish with J.R. Hildebrand and Dan Weldon that Josh had mentioned, and I just got kind of hooked right away. So, fast forward to 2012, ended up going to my first one, and I, remember being so disappointed that that we didn't get to see Dario and Takuma, fight all the way to the finish, and I was kind of bummed because Dario had won before, and I like Dario, but I kind of like seeing new winners. But that was disappointing. Took a couple years off from attending. So I have plenty of my own traditions. Like my dad used to always print out a starting grid for me. So last night I emailed him a copy of the starting grid. So he's like, we kind of had a laugh about the tradition being switched. 2015 we started going again. Last year and this year I've been fortunate enough to be able to go the whole month. Not through my side or anything, just as a fan. Last year was just incredible to see afterwards, seeing Elio, tie the Mears and Unser and Foyt, and just how much the fans reacted, and everybody's climbing the fence with him. And I remember thinking that morning about how, it'd be kind of cool to, see him tie the record. Because, there's still a part of me that's an Andretti fan, and that is like wanting so badly to see Marco break that curse. I remember in 06 when Michael and Marco got passed by Hornish, and I was pretty disappointed because for me that's kind of where the Andretti curse kind of begins and ends, because I was born in late '92 after Jeff
wrecked, Mario wrecked,
accident, Michael's fuel pump blowing out or whatever with
11, 10, whatever laps ago.
Yeah, the year before, Michael lost that incredible duel with Rick Mears.
Yeah.
So Josh kind of touched on, too, there's a lot of the patriotic aspect. Being now a Purdue graduate and not being in Indiana as much as and being back in Arizona, back home again in Indiana has even more meaning for me now, and I still get pretty teared up even just thinking about it, honestly. So I'm sure that I'm going to be, shedding some tears on race day, which I have no problem with. And so this is just about a lot about traditions. And being on the West Coast in Arizona, I didn't get to wake up for Monaco very much, but I'm sure I'm going to try and tune into that. And then once the race is over, I'll come back. I'll have what has kind of become my own personal tradition of post-race dinner at St. Elmo's, which, for anybody who's never been to Indianapolis, it's amazing steakhouse, amazing shrimp cocktail. Definitely a must-go-to. That shrimp cocktail is borderline atomic, and pretty close to sinus clearing, they call it. And
it made John Force blush, so that tells you all you need to know.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Oh. All right. So, I mean, we'll get more into Indy itself for this week here in a little bit. But, Joe, I mean, you got to chime in a little bit with Josh because of your Junebug fandom at the 600. It's the home. It's a home for the Earnhardts. And, of course, his father won that race many times. He won the first day and a night 600 in 1993. I think that was his last of 3 or 4 wins in the 600. Then Davey, of course, won it as well in the day in 91 and 92, coming off of his huge wreck in the Winston, the one hot night Winston, when the All-Star race used to be good. They destroyed their best car. He came back, won the next week. And but yeah, Earnhardt, the Earnhardt fandom, it is home. It is Charlotte Motor Speedway. And big race. It was, as Josh mentioned, it's not the same as it used to be by any stretch of imagination, but it's still a big race no matter what.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I have a lot of memories about 600 week. They don't go reach back as far as Josh, I don't think. I wasn't really involved with NASCAR until about 2004. And unfortunately, I was too young. My parents imposed a very strict bedtime on me in elementary school. So I think actually the first full Coke 600 I remember watching is actually that race when Dale Jr. came up. Just that, 2 turns and half a straightaway short on gas, and Kevin Harvick rolling around to steal it on that late restart. Although actually even reaching further, and this is probably my first real memory of the Coke 600 as a whole, Casey Kane and the incredible week he had at Charlotte in 2008 doesn't transfer through from the All-Star Showdown into the All-Star race, wins the fan vote to just get it right at the last second, drives from the back to the front to win the All-Star race, and 1 week later wins the Coke 600. I mean, just an absolutely incredible run from that 9 team back when it was owned by Ray Enverham.
Yeah, I have to preface that Tony Stewart was going to win that race, and a bad year tire failed going into turn 1. He was leading the race with 1 lap to go. That's after the fuel mileage situation in 2007. And having 2 chances after running the Indianapolis 500. He cuts a bad year tire going into 1 and lost the 600 after giving away the 500 earlier in the year. Okay, I'm going to let you go now.
For me, really, you talk about the crown jewels in stock car racing. For a long time, the 600, whether it was the World 600, the Coca-Cola family set, whatever you wanted to call it, it was always a crown jewel. This race was meant to be one of the hardest. When Burton Smith, when they first built Charlotte Motor Speedway and they brought those initial promoters on board, that's how they promoted this race. It's the longest race. It is going to be tough. It's on Memorial Day weekend. The temperatures inside of the cars have exceeded. I remember there was a year, I think Tony Stewart lost like 11 or 13 pounds in the race car that night, just running the 600. Didn't run the 500 earlier that day. I mean, it is a physically tough race, even though the track itself is not the hardest to run. It's not the hardest on the equipment. That extra 100 miles, or that extra 200 miles in some instances, that really puts the drivers, the crews, and the equipment especially to the test to see how well they prepare those cars. I think about, this was the one race that eluded Bill Elliott the year that he won his $1 million in 1985. This was the one that he could not win. That's how tough this race is. And in more recent years, I think especially this race has taken on a whole new meaning in 20. I mean, the patriotic paint schemes were always prevalent, especially after the turn of the century. But in 2012, when the NASCAR Salute program started formally, I remember it was a really big deal having almost every single car on track that weekend for the 600 in May, as well as for what then was the July 4th race weekend at Daytona, with patriotic paint schemes in some fashion, whether it was a minor touch-up to an existing paint scheme or a brand new paint scheme altogether. And in addition, and probably even more meaningful than the paint schemes themselves, having the names of the soldiers in the different divisions of the armed forces who had lost their lives and had given to the country, to have those run on the windshield banners from 2013 forward, that to me is incredible. It's an incredible display of how this sport recognizes how important the country is and how important the sacrifice is that we every day don't necessarily think about in order to make our lives possible. And, the first time I went to the 600 in 2017, it was almost like I remember having goosebumps. Pre-race, they put on this incredible show. They have a military demonstration. They talk about some of the biggest moments in military history. I believe, if I recall correctly, one year was the Battle of Iwo Jima from World War II. And they have military choppers fly in and actually land on the front stretch infield. They do a salute, a 21-gun salute. I mean, it brings chills to me, those memories of sitting in the grandstands watching that, and it makes you feel a lot more connected. And even if just a little bit, it makes you recognize the bigger picture, right? We love racing, all of us, whether it's IndyCar, Formula One, NASCAR, go-karts, midgets, quarter midgets, sprint cars, whatever it is. We love racing. But without the freedom that we have, we wouldn't be able to race so freely. And the people on the front lines who are giving their lives so we can do that, that sacrifice is greater than everything. And I remember, in fact, I believe it was either David Reagan or David Gilliland one year. I loved it so much. On the windshield banner, they ran the unknown soldier. And I loved that. I thought, it's great to name off all the individual soldiers and to give them that night of recognition. But with so many people not being known for their sacrifice, that one is probably my favorite that's ever been run of any windshield banner, of any story that's been told from the NASCAR Salutes program. I think that one is the one that sticks out to me the most. And I'm glad every year to see that return. I'm glad to see that they still do this program for NASCAR Salutes where they have the 6 or 7 weeks over the summer. They run the special decal on the sides of the cars. They put up those windshield banners for the 600. And I'm especially glad because over the past few years, the schemes themselves have become a little lackluster. I'm really glad to see those patriotic paint schemes. Stewart-Haas Racing just put out 3 of them for Briscoe, Harvick, and Almirola. Last week, Hendrick Motorsports put out their 4 for all 4 of their drivers, and I'm excited to see more as they come in, and I'm excited to see them run the track. The 600, Josh, you alluded to this with the stage racing. It definitely has sucked away some of the strategy, but I'm a firm believer that there's still maneuverability within it. 2020, we had the tire strategy at the end for that last 2-3 pit stops, really, the tire strategy that was implemented by some of the teams, ultimately leading to Brad Keselowski on older tires winning that race. In 2017, that was my first 600 actually attending the race. I remember Austin Dillon, Justin Alexander, his crew chief at the time, employing that fuel mileage strategy. Jimmy Johnson and Chad Knaus leading that race. I mean, a lap and a half to go to run out of fuel, and to then only lead the last lap and a half of the race for Austin Dillon, and to go and capture that first win. I mean, there are so many moments. We could go on and on about the 600. And I'm thrilled that it's that time of year. I'm thrilled that I get to watch it in conjunction with the Indianapolis 500 and Monaco this year. I'm so excited. Admittedly, F1 and Indianapolis and IndyCar racing are not something I'm super well versed on. I've definitely been getting a little bit more into IndyCar. I'm following it more, especially on Twitter and on other social media platforms. Formula One trying to do the same. It's a little harder with the start times for me to track F1, but I'm really excited. This weekend is going to be hopefully some of the best racing we see all year long. certainly the longest day of motorsports in general. And I'm really excited. I'd love to be there for the Lanyard Skinyard pre-race concert in Charlotte this year, but I'm thrilled to be a part of this weekend in any capacity. So hopefully, great things are going to come.
Yeah, I hope so too. It's something that I've looked forward to. I mean, I'm the oldest of the crew here on this show, and my earliest memories of, I mean, for Monaco, it's simply Ayrton Senna. He's one of my heroes. He won Monaco 6 times. He won Monaco. He was the first driver to run an active suspension car in '87. I wasn't watching it. I was two, but like in history going back, winning in an active suspension car at Monaco, which ended up being the first of his 6 wins. In '88, the historic run where he qualified 1 second faster than Alan Prost, lost focus, crashed his car, walked back to his left his car over there by the tunnel, Kyle Busch style, went and walked back to his apartment, and Joe Ramirez had to call him on the phone. He's crying because he gave away the race. Came back and won the world championship, albeit now through all different points and people aren't getting it, whatever. But Senna basically won from 1987 to 93, when every race Sans won at Monaco. And, he was a king. Michael Schumacher, then went on to continue his dominant run, not only in a Benetton, but then also in Ferrari. But then other guys have won their first race there, like Jarno Trulli and Fisichella. I think won his first race there. Might have been, it was Fisichella won his first race there. There's been people that have had their moments there. Lewis Hamilton, it hasn't been one of his greatest racetracks, considering how great he is, over 100 wins. He only has 2 or 3 at Monaco, but it's a classic. It's not a tier 1 circuit, let's be honest. It's more about the glitz and glamour. I think it's more of a Formula E circuit because of the speed, and Formula E seems to put on a decent show there. Formula One, with these cars that are way long and really long and way too wide, I'm not sure what we're going to see this week. Probably going to see a Max Verstappen benefit for those who are into that crap. But in regards to what the history of this race, I mean, it was in the movie Grand Prix. You can see those races from the first year, from 1950. You're winning on basically the same circuit that Juan Manuel Fangio or Giuseppe Farina, or insert driver from the past, has run. Whether it's Mario Andretti or James Hunt or Prost or Senna, Schumacher, or Mansell, whoever. That's what makes it. And the fact there's just multi-billionaire yachts out there on the one side and pools and whatever, and women of all different ages that have had tons of work done, walking around the circuit, famous people of all different lives, whether it's in motorsports or sports or actors or actresses. It's a race that, you want to win. It's a major. It's something that you say you won Monaco. It matters even in the lower formula. If you win a Monaco, it matters. You may not do jack crap the rest of your career, but you win Monaco, it has a thing. It's like Karun Chandhok won at Monaco in F2, I believe, and that's his calling card in racing. It means something. And like Stoffel Van Dorn celebrated a few weeks ago winning the Formula E race, and he's like, "Yeah, I just won Monaco." He was in Formula One, got dropped out of Formula One. It means something. We'll see what happens this week, but those memories always stick with me. Indianapolis it's just it's everything. I get emotional back home again in Indiana. I think about Jim Nabors singing it when he was leaving because of his health. I was tearing up listening to him sing that song for the last time. Jim Cornelison does a great job with it. And his voice is booming and it's insane. He could talk in a field of 10 million people and his voice could get through too. He's definitely a great person to come through. It's not the same, but I still love it because the thing I love about Back Home Again in Indiana is that's the last thing they sing Back Home Again in Indiana, and then it's like 30 seconds, and then you're gonna have what used to be ladies and gentlemen, or lady and gentlemen, or gentlemen start your engines. Now it's drivers start your engines. In our time now, we have to go and do that. I don't know. You can do gentlemen start your engines. There's 33 gentlemen that are driving this weekend. I don't think you're offending anybody, but that was a tradition. It used to be the Tony Holman, then his wife, then the daughter, then Tony George for a couple of years, and now Roger Penske gives us that command. I mean, all the pre-race stuff before that with the taps and all the stuff. I mean, it's tradition, which is what makes it so amazing, and it builds up that in anticipation. And you have all that like it's one of the only pre-race shows in the whole year that actually has meaning, because you have enough time to see all the pomp and pageantry of this Memorial Day weekend and what it means, and also what it means at Indianapolis and all these fans. And you get to build up the race itself with all these drivers, 33 drivers driving. Basically, you're driving airplanes into a gymnasium in a sense. I think they made that comparison to Bristol, but it definitely is that way at Indianapolis when you're running 240 plus miles an hour in turn one, like Connor Daly did earlier this month, and other guys were getting there, and Scott Dixon, of course, qualifying on pole again yesterday for a fifth time, which is insane. Shows one of the great. I mean, he's one of the greatest race car drivers of all time, and for me, Indianapolis, I mean, talking about Andretti, Spencer being from Nazareth, I was a Michael Andretti guy. 92 will always bother me. That was the closest he ever got. Should have won that race, but it ended up allowing one of the greatest finishes in the history of Indianapolis 500. It was one of the worst days in the Indianapolis 500 history. Bobby G wrecking after qualifying, the fastest 4-lap average, 1 in 4-lap average, crashing on the pace laps. How many people got hurt that day? Jeff Andretti was seriously injured that day. The amount of crashes. Rick Mears' last Indy 500 ended crashing with his teammate Emerson Fittipaldi. And Rick Mears was just on the download talking about his crashes at Indianapolis the last couple of years of his career. And he's like, well, those were a part of it, but it wasn't the real reason why I decided to quit. And, you think about a guy who had jacked up both of his feet and ankles in his heyday and still came back and won many IndyCar races, was the king of the 500-mile race win, and he was also the king of qualifying at Indianapolis. Elio, like we go and bring it from back then, Michael in 91 and 92. As the years went on, there's cool moments like Jacques Villeneuve in 95 winning the race in his second try, coming from 2 laps down after finishing high up the year before in his rookie year. Wins in 95, second in 94, thanks, Spencer. Wins in 95, goes to Formula One, and finishes second in the World Championship as a rookie in 96, and in 1997 becomes a Formula One World Champion. And then I remember him in 93 driving Toyota Atlantics with the mop of hair that he had and the huge Coke bottle glasses that him and Paul Tracy had, except Paul Tracy was like 200 pounds. And Jacques Villeneuve was like 120. But that was one. The 96, the split, it's funny because I was on YouTube today, and Bob Varsha trying to go and sell the US 500 intro to try to talk about the drama and all that. And it's like, I only got a few years with the best of it in that kart time. And then the split happened. And we got Harry Lunatic getting the fastest 1 in 4 lap average ever. But, Buddy Lazier with a broken back winning that race. I was rooting for Davy Jones because he's a Northeast guy. But the Buddy Lazier story was pretty cool for a journeyman guy driving for a team that had been really an Indy-only team in Hamilton Racing, getting that win. And Buddy Lazier made a nice career for himself in the IRL and that team, and his wife's hot too, so it didn't hurt. Harry Lunatic gets another pole in 97, wins that race, a goofy end to the race, which basically ended USAC's involvement. I'm not going to mention 98 because he's a tool. 99 was Kenny Breck after Robbie Gordon ran out of fuel for John Menard. He was trying to run the double that year, too. I think he failed to qualify for the 600. And then in 2000, Juan Pablo, that's where I love that. I mean, I'm a Juan Pablo Montoya fan. And one of Robin Miller, rest in peace, God rest his soul, he goes and says, I went up to AJ and I asked him, how about that Montoya, what he did over there? He's like, well, that Monterior, he's pretty good. So he would go and call Juan Pablo Montoya Juan Pablo Monterior, and he called him that until the end of his life. And I passionately as a fan, I call him Juan Pablo Monterior, and it don't matter because he's still that good. And he'll tell you that. He'll tell you how good he is. And he's got gray hair now. But he won the Indy 500. He destroyed in the year 2000 in that bucket of crap that they had him driving back in those days, of G-Force with a Blowsmobile engine. And then came back 15 years later and won it again in an actual IndyCar, beating Winch Power, which made me very happy. And who knows, maybe he can come from tailback and do it again. He did well last year. He was running top 5 in the Indy Road Course and crashed late, and that farcical deal there. But he had a good car and then had issues in tech and couldn't qualify in his usual regular spot, put him in the back. It's more fun for Juan Pablo Montoya to go and come through the back, running LMP2 these days, but with his son. But he still got it. I mean, you go through all the years. The IRL years don't really stick out as much. I mean, once Dario started winning there, it was really cool for me. I was a fan of his. He won 3 times, probably would have been the first international 4-time winner if he hadn't had his serious accident at Houston in 2013 and had to retire, because he was so good at that racetrack. I mean, Dan Weldon probably could have gotten it too, to be fair, because he was a natural there. 2011, watching J.R. Hildebrand hit the wall was so depressing, and I feel so bad for him. But the fact is, for that being your moment in your career that everybody remembers you for, J.R. Hildebrand has handled it with way more class and poise than most people would have. And even with the fact that John Barnes threw him under the bus, which the karma came back to him really quick when National Guard left him for Ray Hall Letterman Lanigan. Dario winning, TK winning in 13 was really cool. Not a fan, but, the guy is like a big fan favorite for a lot of other people. That's like Earnhardt, 20 years of trying, 20 years of frustration. Same thing for Tony Kanaan. And then the next year, after Ryan Hunter-Reay lost the race on the last restart, winning the race in that battle with Elio was amazing. Battle of the yellow cars there. That was a great moment. And some of the races over the years, I mean, Juan Pablo. But, yeah, the last year's race was unbelievable. Best race in a few years. And I hope for a similar race. I think it's going to be really good this year. And I hope for that. Hope for good weather. The 600, I mean, Davey winning it before I really understood, and then seeing Earnhardt win it in 93, 94 was a historic moment. Jeff Gordon going and winning his first race, crying like a little bitch in victory lane. then going and stealing the Brickyard 400 after Ernie Irvan cuts a tire down coming off of 2 with a few laps to go. One of the many close calls Ernie had that year before. But yeah, Jeff going and getting his first of what ended up being 5 Brickyard 400 wins in his career. So he and Michael Schumacher are the all-time winners at Indianapolis. Nobody really mentions that because it's kind of taboo. You have the 4-time Indy 500 winners, which is the record that everyone really focuses on, which is what made Elio's win so big, and got Michael Shank drunk for at least a month. But yeah, Jeff Gordon, seeing him win his first race, and Bobby Labonte the next year was big for 2 guys that came in together basically from the Busch Series to the Cup Series. And then from there over the years, you had different guys like Jeff Burton. I always remember 99 and 01 because Tony ran the double. Tony was completely unprepared, finished 7th at Indy in 99 in his own car, went to the 600, had a great car because Bobby always was good at the SMI tracks. They had a great car. He was puking by the end of the damn race or whatever the hell. He couldn't keep food down, whatever. And passed out getting out of the car after finishing 4th. Had a chance to win his first career race there. And so that would have been huge. Then in 2001, he had the fastest car at the end of the race, but he had too much ground to make up. Finished 3rd, had a great post-race interview. Burton won the race, but it was a great job by him after running really well for Ganassi. Finished 6th in the Indy 500. Last run didn't go his way there. The closest he would have gotten to that. And I bring up 07 and 08. Those are 2 other close calls. Should have won that race. Tony's luck in the big races was never there, except at Indy finally when he got his 2 Brickyard 400 wins. But Brad winning in 2020 was really cool. I think that was more to do with the fact that Hendrick handed it to him with Clyde and them, but I'll take it. Other than that, it's a lot of the fuel mileage, seeing people win their first race. That there was a lot of drama with that. The Earnhardt one was interesting. I'm like, oh, here we go. Oh, Junior Nation, they're about to go off. It's going to be funny. And then, by golly, they didn't have enough fuel, and Harvick just ran right by him. I'm like, oh, boy, this ain't going to work out too well.
Look, Kevin Harvick should not have won that race. He got a push from Paul Menard under caution, and it was not supposed to happen, all right?
Well, Harry Gant went and Rick Mass pushed Harry Gant back in 92 at Talladega during the Winston 500, and they didn't penalize that. So there's precedence, even when it's Junebug. If it works for Handsome Harry, then it's got to work for Happy Harv. But yeah, the memories of the 600 are the pageantry and all that. But it was more the difficulty of the race and how you had to last and you had to make it work for 600 miles. And hopefully we'll have a good one. It's been a while since there's been a good one. So we didn't really get a good example of good racing this past weekend. I think if it fits more like what we had at Kansas, might have an intriguing 600 for the first time in a while. So, yeah, that's some of the memories. And I guess let's get in regards to the current day and thinking about what we're going to have this weekend. I guess initial thoughts of what we'll see. I guess for Josh, I'm going to throw to you first to lead. And then we'll just go through the same order. But Spencer, of course, you'll do your Indy 500 stuff. Joe, you'll talk about the 600. And I can finish with a little bit of F1. But, this weekend we have a very tight points battle in Formula One for the Drivers' Championship and the Constructors. Going into Monaco, Mercedes finally looks like they have a possibility to compete. Um, they have the good car for the first time this year. So there's something to be said, which I'll get into in a little bit. But Josh, Indy 500 practice today was intense. Dalton Kellett wiped out, so they're going to have a lot of work to do going to carb day on Friday. But the other 32 cars made it through clean. Ganassi's fast. Sato's fast. The coin cars have been fast all month. But it looks like there's other cars that seem to have good pace and race pace and drive ability. And then in the 600, we're building up. We kind of have to use what we saw at other cookie cutters so far this year as a preface versus what we saw yesterday to build up towards that. So, in regards to, we're going from memories and great moments to what can we see this weekend, or what should we be looking for this weekend amongst the greatest day in motorsports events?
Yeah, I think starting off with the 500, the Indy 500. I think it's going to depend a lot on. I think the car's ability to draft, and how close can they race amongst each other. With the aero screen, it's been, I don't want to say hit or miss, but the aero screen has caused some difficulty with being able to pass. And I think if it's like last year, if the weather is on Sunday is good enough, I think we should have a pretty entertaining race. I think you mentioned Ganassi's been really fast, which obviously not surprising, but I think it's kind of surprising. Haven't really heard or had a lot of noise from Penske. We've had Will Power made it to Fast 12 in qualifying, but the rest of Penske, I mean, McLaughlin hasn't really shown too much speed so far this month. Newgarden, today, sixth place, first among the Chevys in practice, but fairly quiet in qualifying, I think, for him. But I do find it kind of surprising that, Dale Coyne Racing, obviously with our friends at Rick Ware, they've been fast so far this month at Indy with Takuma Sato, and then the other car, David Lucas, number 18, being sneaky fast as well. So I think those cars, yeah, definitely have a chance to win. Ed Carpenter Racing, all their cars, I think, have a chance, to compete in the top 10, potentially win. I think especially with Renus VK, definitely, I think he has if it's not going to be a Chevy, or if it's not going to be a Honda or a Ganassi car, I think the 21 has a chance at winning the 500. Definitely have a fast car, a very strong car. Of course, one of their cars could have won last year if it didn't hit the tire. Connor Daly, if he didn't hit the tire flying off Graham Rahel's car, could have won last year. So I think they're going to bring back some of the notes, I guess, from last year and build upon that. And I think those ECR cars definitely are fast in traffic, and definitely they have a lot of pace that. We'll have to see if they can bring it out on Sunday, if they can lead laps throughout the race and have the right strategy. They definitely are a threat. So I think Jimmy Johnson, definitely, I think he's probably one of the wild cards in this race. Well, we have to see his ability to pass on the outside, pass on the inside if needed. It's going to be tough. It's going to be a tough to be able to get a run and be able to make it to the inside. We saw a highlight of him in practice trying to make an attempt to pass his teammate and got to the outside, but just didn't have enough to be able to clear him on going into turn 3, and had to back out of it. So, but then later on he was able to make the same move in turn 1 and actually complete the pass. So we'll have to see if how well he can adapt to. Being able to make those kind of moves, and then also keeping up with the track changes throughout the day, using the tools like we talked about with the anti-roll bars in the front and back, and the weight jacker and everything. And then of course managing your fuel with the engine mapping. A lot of challenges that come into being able to not only just win the Indy 500, but just to be up there and be competitive in the top 10, top 5, the podium or whatever. So there's a lot for Jimmy Johnson that he's going to have to go up against that he didn't really have to face in NASCAR running here at Indianapolis and everything. And then I think for the 600, it's it's gonna be interesting. I think with the way that the mile and a half racing's played out, and we've seen kind of how they've raced at night on a mile and a half with Texas, but Texas is unique because of course they ruined the track surface with the PJ1, aka Lyric Strip, and the banking, of course, is different in two ends of the racetrack, and one side being flatter than the other. The everything about it is wrong, I think, and we don't have to get into it too much, but races like Texas at night. I mean, it's gonna, again, continue the trend of the 600 not really having all that compelling racing. But then, if we get something like what we've seen at Kansas or at Las Vegas earlier this year, the mile and a halfs, then maybe we'll have a really good race to watch. A lot of passing, a lot of fight for the lead, that kind of thing. Make it compelling. Bring back in some strategy that could definitely make the 600 a lot more entertaining to watch than what it has been in the past couple of years. And we have to see what happens, but expect the Hendrick cars to be up there, Gibbs and probably Penske to be up there. So it's gonna be an interesting race for sure. And if it comes down to it and we get fuel mileage, hopefully they're able to let it play out and everything, and NASCAR doesn't throw a stupid caution like they did last night at Texas, and they don't try to milk the finish and try to provide some fake artificial drama or whatever, but they actually let the strategy play out. As long as there's no actual safety issues, of course. If the car pounds the wall and they're stopped, you have to throw a caution for that. But if it's like just slapping the wall barely, like Ricky Stenhouse did in the All-Star race last night, that does not warrant a caution, I think. So they definitely should not throw the caution just to milk the finish or whatever and provide an exciting finish. But it's going to be an exciting race, I think, for both 500 and the 600. But just ready to watch for both of them.
Yeah, I think. I think we can go off on tirades about how bad yesterday's action was at Texas, but I've been outspoken about my dislike for that dump for years. I think Joe and I got in and started joking around about what we should do if we were allowed to take Texas Motor Speedway. It's like if somebody would give me, if I would win one of the Mega Millions, I think one of the first things I would do is go to Burton Smith and see if I could buy Texas Motor Speedway, because then I'd just go and put affordable housing up and make the place more useful, because it's definitely not a good racetrack. It's not good for IndyCar, not good for NASCAR. It's not good for anything. I don't even think it'd be good for bumper cars or the demolition. It'd probably be good for demolition derby. That's probably what it should be used for. Or should you just raise livestock or cattle there or something, because it is shit. So you could go and have them shit all over the racetrack. It would be good. I would kind of like to see that. I've never liked that place. I can't come up with a race that wasn't like an in IRL kind of, pack racing deal that was good. That's literally what it is. You need to have cars that are really similar in speed, or trucks very similar in speed with high downforce that are all stuck together. I think that's where it's like the one memorable finish that I can have from Texas was when Graham almost gave away the race a few years ago, raising his hand out of his cockpit and almost lost the hinge who dominated. I think it was 2019, whatever. That was the race, or no, 2017, yeah. That was when Graham was 16, yeah, when Graham was actually good. And that was after Joseph Newgarden, almost, him and Connor had a huge crash like months before, and they had to cancel the race. And then Newgarden came back the next week at Iowa and led like 230 laps or something of that 250 lap race, or 200 plus laps. That was a race that Roger Penske's like, yeah, I should hire that guy. If it wasn't in the cards, I think he hired him after that. He was hurt, had a busted wrist, and he goes and dominates at Iowa Speedway. which is why Joseph Newgarden is trying to possibly go and win in Indianapolis and guarantee himself lifetime contract at Penske, because that's literally what Pagano proved that wrong, and I guess Alio did. But Spencer, speaking of the Indy 500, let's throw to you. I mean, I'm looking at practice speeds. We're getting, they don't give reports like 10 lap average or any of that. Maybe you get that on your end, but I mean, Connor Daly has a fast car on the straightaways. Takuma's had a good car in the draft, but when it comes to this race, I mean, it's Scott Dixon. I think the initial storyline is going to be, can Scott Dixon finally get number 2? He's won this one time in 2008. He dominated that race, qualified on pole that year too. But he's been close. He's been up front so many times. He's had weird crap happen to him in recent years. On pit road, last year he had issues on pit road. A couple of years ago it was what's his face that was driving for Tony Stewart, and I think it was Schmidt and them.
Howard.
And Jay Howard, and he bounced off the car, and thank you, and bounced off the wall, and then Scott Dixon took off, and that was a huge wreck. There's been weird stuff, but it's like, what are you looking at? I mean, you've been here the whole month, been seeing things. The qualifying was epic. Some of the saves, like Jimmy Johnson had to make, Sato hitting the wall, staying in it because he's nuts. He's a 2-time Indy 500 winner. There's a reason why he has fans all over the world. The guy is not stable. He is working at a different level. He's been working at a different level for over 2 decades. He's been doing this kind of crap in lower formula cars. He did it in Formula One, and now he gets to do it for Indy cars, and he might give Rick Ware an Indy 500 win, which would be something. I'll tell you. If Rick Ware wins an Indy 500, that might go in reverse inflation, I'll tell you.
Yeah, first off, I kind of want to just say something personal off of what Joe said. This past weekend, I know it was Armed Forces Day, and it was Armed Forces qualifying at the Speedway. The Speedway has their traditional enlistment ceremony, and these, it's like that kind of have some personal meaning to me. I've got a cousin currently deployed in the Marines. My grandfather, who passed away when I was pretty young, was in the Marines during World War II. So there's extra meaning to that for me, as I'm sure there are a lot of people. So special shout out to them and to everybody and their families who are serving overseas. I did hear, it was earlier on in practice today, but I still heard over the PA that the best 10 or 15, maybe both, lap average was J.R. Hildebrand, who that patriotic Homes for Our Troops scene with ABC Supply.
ABC Supply.
Back to the patriotic theme that Joe and Josh have kind of touched on. But you're right. You're looking at Scott Dixon as a possible favorite. He's been really fast all week. Set the pole track record, whatever you want to call it. You had Pelot finish second last year, and then now he's starting second. You had VK lead qualifying, and now he's starting third for the second year in a row. Got Ericsson in fifth, and Kanaan in sixth, and Johnson in 12th, kind of leading that Ganassi. I don't even know which I'm going to call it, that Ganassi brigade, for lack of a better term. Penske cars were a little surprising. I know McLaughlin was kind of mid-pack, and then he decided to pull his time and ended up falling back. Rossi fell back a few spots when he did the same thing. So, I said earlier, there's part of me that wouldn't be surprised if Dixon kind of, dominates and runs away with this thing in a bit of a laugher. But it could be this things. We've had one of the most competitive eras probably ever. If not the most competitive era ever. So skating could be pretty wide open. Just a kind of a dorky stat, but would kind of be fascinating to see Daly win because he's starting 18th, and that is the only starting spot in the top 2/3 of a traditional 33 car field that has never produced a winner. You've had winners like Haroon and Meyer from 28th in 1911 and 36. See what other spots haven't, but I know that spot for and of course it probably doesn't mean as much as I'm pretending or acting like it does, but it's still just fascinating because it's a spot that there's been winners from 16, 17.
Every spot.
Yeah, but just Weldon was one of I think 3 guys to finish second after starting 18th, and that was back in 2010. So
Yeah, for the whatever. Oh, why am I forgetting? Is Panther Racing? Yeah.
yeah,
Connor needs a new pool because we still haven't figured out who jacked up his pool.
Dalton said that Doug Bowles is Connor's stepdad is helping clean it up.
Yeah, well, Doug Bowles is the man at Indianapolis and is also his stepdad, but that doesn't mean we have to find out who did this. That's the most intriguing story outside of the race. That who jacked up his pool. Callum Ilot's been in way too many pictures. I honestly think it's Alexander Rossi. I'm under the suspicion it's Alexander Rossi or Tony Kanaan. It's one of those two.
There's people that think Connor did it to himself, which I wouldn't be surprised by, but I find that hard to believe. There
self-sabotage for Connor Daly. Like, his car isn't that good. Like, he hasn't even been at the same pace as his teammates. Why is he self-sabotaging himself?
Yeah. I've got nothing to do with anything, I promise. There was, I don't know if you guys saw this, but somebody something happened with one of the graphics, and on Kyle Kirkwood's, it got changed to Kirk Kirkwood. So I made the joke to somebody. I'm like,
I did see that.
That must be the guy who's pulling all the pranks.
I guess I'm Kirk. That's what he tweeted out after that.
So we may have to start hashtag blame Kirk Kirkwood.
Yeah, well, he's going to be Kirk Kirkwood when he goes over to Andretti Autosport next year, I guess. But yeah, I mean, this race, there's a lot to dig into with this race. There's so many intriguing storylines going on. I don't think we're going to be able to do it service tonight. I think I want to bring us back to do it again. I wanted to go and kind of get into the memories of it because of all these races, because they mean so much, and just because of our being able to honor the veterans, the past, the veterans that are not here with us, and even the veterans that are still with us. Yes, we have Veterans Day in November, but it's a time to go and celebrate those who are giving their service and serving for us. And Joe, we've been working on all this new car, having different growing pains with it. 600 miles, longest race that we're going to have in a year, in this year, of course, with 4 100 lap segments. But the strain is going to be there, a little bit of shifting possibly, but who knows? It's something to look at with this car. We've had the good at certain tracks like Vegas and Kansas. We've had the bad like last week and other night races, to be honest, which makes me think that the last segment and a half is not going to be great. But the early part of the race should be. And it could really, and if people miss their setup, there's races over recent years. Like if you miss your setup, you're out to lunch, you lose a lap or 2 laps. You lose 2 laps, it's game over. You can't have enough cautions for that. But you can lose a lap really quick at Charlotte if you're off, and I think that's something we have to look at this weekend. I mean, that practice session, Joe, coming up Saturday afternoon is going to be huge. That and qualifying. What are you thinking? At least your initial thoughts for the 600 very early in the week, but with this car after what we saw yesterday, what are you thinking for the 600 here this coming weekend?
Sure. So, I'm going to be honest. I really wouldn't use the All-Star race last night as an indication of the 600. Now, I could be proven wrong, but I wouldn't necessarily say just because Texas is a mile and a half and just because Charlotte's a mile and a half, they're racing at night. I don't know that's enough for me to buy into the fact that we're maybe not looking at a good 600. I'm excited, actually, to see what this car can do, because over the past number of years, we've actually seen more dominant performances in the 600 probably than ever before. 2016, Martin Truex Jr. leads all but 12 miles of the race, the most dominant performance in NASCAR history.
394, 400 laps.
Yeah.
So it's all of 6 laps.
Yeah, and the 2 years later, in his Toyota, Kyle Busch leading 350 laps, and then last year another dominant performance, Kyle Larson leading over 300 laps. Really, it is a troubling pattern. But we've also seen then, the 2020 600 where, Bowman was out for a few hundred laps. Elliott had the better of the field for a little bit. Logano was up there. And ultimately, Brad Keselowski winning had the 2017 600. So this race is really all over the place. You get some races in past years where it's been all over. You have a lot of leaders. And then you have some where one team, one car is just so good day in and day out. Or I guess day out and night in. Rather, where they just dominate, and it's like nobody can hold a candle to them. So it really, I don't know what we're going to see in that sense this year, just because that seems to really fluctuate, and obviously it depends on the car that the teams bring. I do have a little bit of concern around the Coke 600, particularly around the tires. We have seen quite a few tire issues this season at a variety of racetracks, not just mile and a halves. The last 2 weeks in particular at Kansas, there were a handful of tire issues. And then last night at the All-Star race, again, a handful in a much shorter race. Now, at one point this year, it was seemingly almost like these tires didn't wear as much. These tires seem to not wear a whole lot and then fall off a cliff, so much so to the point where it may be problematic. In a sense, this may be good, actually, that this race is broken up into 4 stages, because, you're going to have to pit every stage. Most stages, you're probably going to run between 40 to 60 laps, tops. And in fact, I would imagine, because of the past few weeks, teams may decide to be a little conservative and try to split up the stages as equally as possible to get right on that 50-lap mark. And try not to push the life of the tire too much. Charlotte, though, tends to be a little bit not as high wear as some other tracks have been. But again, new tire, you don't know what is to be expected with it. Passing in past years has been an issue with the 600. It was certainly an issue last year. At the end of the race, it was seeming almost like you had 2 cars that could pass. Well, that one was Kyle Larson, who could pass the lap traffic, and Kyle Busch, who spoiled a potential another Hendrick 1, 2, 3, 4 there late in the race. So passing, I would be a little concerned about, but again, we've seen some really positive things out of this next gen car, especially at the likes of Las Vegas. So it's very possible that that's not an issue anymore. The other thing, and this is not, I want to make it clear, this is not something I'm concerned about in particular to the next gen car, but just in general, this is a concern I think every team has when you come to the 600 every year, is the life of the car, right? Adding that last 100, 200 miles from your normal race weekend, like I alluded to earlier, that's a lot of extra strain. These engines, these cars, they're not designed to run, the 150 to 200,000 miles that the car is in your driveway, right? These cars are meant to run maybe 4 to 5, if you're lucky, 6 races tops. The engines certainly are not going to last 6 races. I mean, it's these cars are built for performance, not longevity. And sometimes that's how teams have won this race, is by finding the best balance between the longevity and the performance of these cars. Sometimes it's not won that way, sometimes it is. So really, I think what I'm getting at is that there may be a lot of unknowns heading into this weekend. We can base things off past years. We can base things off past weeks, what we've seen. But at the end of the day, we're not going to know until the cars hit the track. Are there outlying concerns? Absolutely, there are concerns after what we've seen the past week. But you know what? I always say it's best to try to learn from it. Hopefully, over the course of this season, we can learn a lot about the tires, how they wear, maybe what exactly is happening that sometimes makes these tires not last very long, and that can be fixed. The 600, as far as, if we want to get a little more factually based, historically, at least for the last decade and change, has only been won by a handful of teams. Hendrick has won a few of them, Penske's won a few of them, and Gibbs has won a few of them. Childress is probably the name that I think would surprise a lot of people. Childress, in the past 12 years, is the only other team. I mean, you have Furniture Row Racing in 2016, but really it was a Gibbs prepared car with the alliance that they had. I consider it, at least, pretty much a Gibbs win. But Richard Childress Racing, the past few years they've struggled, but they have some good history in the last decade at this race. Harvick won 2 of them, 2011 and 2013. Austin Dillon won it in 2017. So it's been a few years, but it's still possible that they can break through, or that another team can break through. And that's, I think, part of the nice thing about having the 600, that extra 100 miles, is that it sometimes allows for something unexpected to happen in that last stretch of the race. I would say, though, definitely for sure, if you're making bets, you're probably going to bet Joe Gibbs Racing or Hendrick Motorsports. Team Penske's been all right. They've kind of been hot and then not this season. They had a bad race at Dover. Last week they had a really good race at Texas. So, they've been a little bit more inconsistent. Hendrick has been really good from the start of the year, but it seems like in the past few weeks, Gibbs has really found something, and they're becoming a really big threat. I know they had a rocky start to the season, all 4 of those cars, but Hamlin won at Richmond, and ever since then, they've been getting a little bit better each week. We had Kyle get into the win at Bristol. I mean, really, I think Kyle Busch had the car to beat before the accident happened this past weekend. No, I don't think anybody was going to hold a candle to him. He was going to start first in that last segment, and I think that would have been it. Truex has been slowly getting quieter. He's been moving up the points a little. Bell has made a lot of ground in the points over the past few weeks. There was one point where he was in almost the mid-20s, and he is now in playoff contention without a win. And then, of course, you have Kyle Busch, who I think is really, for right now, kind of leading the charge at Joe Gibbs Racing. He's very high up in points. He's a proven winner. He's won this race before in dominating fashion. I expect him to be a contender on Sunday. And then Denny Hamlin. Hamlin's never won the 600. This could be an opportunity for him to capture another crown jewel. He's got wins at Talladega, at Daytona, in the Southern 500. This could be his opportunity to capture maybe that last crown jewel that's missing from a really stellar career. So I would actually pick this weekend, believe it or not. I think I would pick Gibbs over Hendrick Motorsports. Hendrick's 1.5 mile program this year seems to be subpar to that of Joe Gibbs Racing. I think Joe Gibbs Racing has just caught a lot of really bad breaks. But, only time will tell. But I would pick Joe Gibbs Racing. I would probably take Kyle Busch or Denny Hamlin to go ahead and win this race. But it's going to be exciting. I'm really excited just overall for the race, to see the patriotic paint schemes, all the things we talked about earlier. Before I hand it back over to you, I want to all my NASCAR fans, to all the fans out there listening, I want to plug the Indy 500 this year. Jimmy Johnson has been showing some good speed in practices, was showing good in qualifying, made a really great save. If you're a NASCAR fan and you've only casually watched the Indy 500, or if you've never watched the Indy 500, this is the year that you're going to want to watch it, because we're going to want to see how well Jimmy Johnson, the 7-time champion coming over from stock car racing, does in open wheel's biggest day. I don't know, truthfully, if he can win. I think maybe experience and his lack thereof in an IndyCar at this track may get him. But it'll be interesting to see if he can use anything from his 4 Brickyard wins in NASCAR and maybe have a successful day in IndyCar.
Yeah, it's something I am venturing to think that there's going to be a lot of Jimmy coverage based on what we've seen. Dale Jr. download as a special series now that's literally focused on Jimmy Johnson and his IndyCar career. You have a hit on the NBC YouTube page with him and Blake Shelton in regards to the American Legion. You have the talk about him during practice, and he has shown great pace. He's in one of the Ganassi cars. He had a great run at the Texas dump. His best career finish. There's going to be, if you're not fond of Jimmy Johnson, it's going to be tough for you. But if you're a NASCAR person, if you're a Jimmy Johnson fan, if you're just the fact of the matter is you have Miss Hummer on the broadcast, so she's going to talk about him, and Dale Jr. is going to be on there. You have Dale Jarrett's going to be there. So you have all the NASCAR people there. They're all going to talk about Jimmy Johnson. And probably Dale Jr. is going to mention Root Beer Floathead as well, because he's probably going to go run up there too in his one-off this year. If you don't know that reference, that's Santino Ferrucci. His stupid hairdo looks like a root beer float, and he's a douche. But he's really good at 500-mile at races. He's really good at these oval races. And the way it looks, Ray Hall, Letterman, Lanigan might have been better off hiring him or Oliver Askew instead of Jack Harvey for the Hy-Vee car. But let's get into, I'm just going to go briefly before we end this one today, hoping to get into more in-depth previews, because I don't want to make this like a 3-hour deal. Talking to other people, it seems like that's not the deal, and not the most ideal scenario. I don't want to keep everybody. Probably can start things a little earlier. Maybe we can go on later on in the week. But just for Formula One, Josh, of course, you can chime in accordingly. Verstappen, 3 wins in a row, 4 wins on the season, 6 points out of Leclerc, going to Leclerc's home in Monaco. He's had horrible luck at Monaco. He crashed a historic Ferrari due to a brake rotor failing, to add to his terrible luck there. Last year, he put it on pole and then crashed at the swimming pool complex. Couldn't even race. He needs to put one together this weekend to recover the points lead, but I have a hard time believing that that's going to happen. I think what we saw yesterday was the beginning of the end, at least until Mercedes is able to solve they're fully solved their issues that they've had, because George Russell has done a great job this year driving that car that's a piece of crap, and only be 11 points behind Sergio Perez for third in points. Lewis, of course, getting into this race, and it's been a struggle all year for him, but he's a former winner there. He's a former 3-time winner of the Monaco Grand Prix, or 4-time, 3-time, 3-time winner. 2008, my favorite one, was the year his first win, the year he won the World Championship. And he's also won in 16 and 19. Verstappen's only won this race once. Ricciardo, Vettel, Weber. Vettel's won this race twice. Weber won it twice. A lot of different guys. Juan Pablo Montoya won this race in 2003. Was really good there. So, I mean, it's going to be interesting at Monaco this weekend for sure. We'll get into it more in depth in the preview, though, but later on this week. But I think there's a lot more intrigue for this Monaco Grand Prix than we might have had prior to yesterday's race.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's been a lot of intrigue into it. I think with Charles Leclerc, maybe he used up all his bad luck. Of course, he crashed in the Monaco Classic Grand Prix a couple weeks ago. Maybe he's gonna have a little bit better luck this time than what he's had in the last couple of years. So definitely think Ferrari's going to be up there for sure. I think if they win the pole, one of them, if it's Carlos Sainz or, more than likely Charles Leclerc, if they win the pole, more than likely they're probably going to win the race. And that goes for anybody that wins the pole, whether it's Lewis or Max or Charles Leclerc. So I think any of those guys could, if they win, they're going to win the pole or win the race as well. Just because of how Monaco, how it's so tough to pass. Especially, I mean, with these cars, it's a little bit different, but it's also one of the tightest circuits, and we've never really seen this car. I mean, we won't know until practice later in the week whether or not they're going to be able to overtake or not. And their ability to be able to overtake, just because we've seen it being able to overtake on the circuits and some of the street races that we've had so far, but we have not seen anything like this yet. This type of circuit. So it's going to be a tough, I think it's still going to be a tough day for passing and overtaking and all that sort of thing. So if anything, it's going to come down to possibly pit strategy with if you're going to try to overtake. I mean, so it's going to come down to that. If Ferrari is able to execute the perfect pit strategy, then obviously they would win. And I think with Red Bull, as long as they give Max Verstappen a reliable car, he certainly has a chance at winning. And he's had struggles recently in qualifying, but he's been able to come back up and win races. And like we've seen the past couple of weeks, he's been able to win, and now he has the points lead. So I think I'm going to lean Ferrari here, but I think Red Bull definitely they have a chance, and of course with Mercedes continue to improve their cars, we could see George Russell or Lewis Hamilton be up there competing for a podium if they're not able to compete for a win. So it should be an interesting race there. And again, I think whoever wins pole is going to probably win the race more than likely.
Fault on that there, but yeah, it's going to be interesting Thursday. They'll have practice. They can't practice at Monaco on Fridays. That's always been the case. So there will be practice on Thursday this week. 2 practice sessions. Of course, you'll have Formula 2 running, no Formula 3. They're taking basically a month and a half break or whatever or so before they go to the British Grand Prix. Not sure who else will be on the undercard there for Monaco, but we'll find out at least initially in terms of pace, 1 lap pace, what people have. I don't think the racing is going to be great because their cars are longer and wider than they've ever been. Now the downforce with the diffuser and all that. And porpoising isn't whatever. I don't think porpoising will be as big of a deal, essentially because the track is so small. Just to give a little pretense, a little subtext to it, kind of going like Spencer would in depth into the stats now, thanks to Racing Reference on this. Since there hasn't been a winner outside of the top 3 qualifying spots in the Monaco Grand Prix since Olivier Panis's 1996 win, which of course was one of the craziest Formula One races ever, where I think only 4 cars finished were actually classified as finishing the race, or some crap. There was like 8 total cars that were on the racetrack at the end of the 96 Monaco Grand Prix. Every top driver had a chance to win it, and they fell out or had something happen. Ended up being Panis's only win and the last win for Ligier. He started 14th that day. And in my life, basically, so in the last 37 years, only twice has somebody came from outside of the top 3. Alain Prost won in 1985, part of his 3 in a row, and 4 out of 5 that he had starting in 1984. And, you go back even that K.K. Rosberg in 83, Depailler 78, Jean-Pierre Beltois in 72, 4th. So you have to go back. It's like basically since 1970, there's only been, 3, 4, 5 occurrences of somebody outside of the top 3. Or 70, since this 71 race, only 5 occurrences of somebody outside of the top 3. So legitimately, you have to qualify on the front row. You really want to qualify on pole, but definitely get in the top 3. If you're outside of that, call it a day. You're just racing for points, and don't crash. That's something that we're going to see, but we'll get more into it. Hopefully later in the week, trying to coordinate it so we can give in-depth previews. Want to keep these things tight. All 3 races deserve their time in their own right. And then also we have to get into what took place this past week. And I guess before we go for tonight, I'll call it the hot take segment before we go. So I'll reverse it here. Joe, I'll throw to you first in regards to what we had to deal with at Texas yesterday. Spencer, and then Josh before I finish, and then we'll get into the show close for today. I mean, that wasn't great. 90% negative result on Jeff Gluck's poll on was it a good race. I mean, I don't know if there's a such thing as a good race at Texas, really, but I'm biased. The fans have fun when you go there, even though you have to probably pay like the same amount as people who are at Southern Hills had to pay for Michelob Ultra to watch Justin Thomas win the second major. $18 for Michelob Ultra is ridiculous, but that's what the people had to pay at Southern Hills. I would have, if I was Mito Pereira, I'd have probably went and spent about $180 after I gave away a 3-shot lead in the final round of a major. But what were your takes on this past weekend? Stu Ball actually won a Truck Series race. So for his 12 fans, truck fans, because I know he has plenty of fans in the modified ranks and all that, he's in the playoff. But Texas wasn't that great.
Yeah, I thought the Xfinity Series race was definitely, I think, the most lively. Trucks had some passing. They would get a little strung out, it would seem. Truthfully, I wasn't too attentive to this week's trucks. I had it on my phone while I was in quarantine, and I was sorting out part of my diecast collection that I'm getting ready to sell. But I was a little more attentive to Xfinity, certainly attentive to Cup. Xfinity, it seemed like you could pass less tire issues. But still, even in the Xfinity with the low downforce and all the problems that can rise because of the low downforce, pretty hard to pass. And it really, since they reconfigured Texas, it seems like that's been the biggest thing, is that no matter what series that runs, no matter what package that runs, it's really hard to pass unless the driver you've just passed made a mistake that allowed you to pass them. Junior Motorsports was really strong all day in that Xfinity race. Just some problems late in the race. Noah Gragson getting involved in a wreck. Allgaier have a tire go down. Berry, again, involved in a wreck. Really, I thought Junior Motorsports, it was their race to lose. They did so well the first two stages. And unfortunately, just circumstances kept them out of the way. But I'll hand it to them. I'm really impressed that Berry and Allgaier were able to recover as well as they did. I believe Allgaier finished 5th and Berry 7th, if I'm not mistaken. So the drive from the back shows that, if you have a good enough car, there is passable, there is opportunity to pass, but still, it's probably one of the hardest tracks, no matter what series you run, what package you run, what tire, whatever that you run. This is probably one of the hardest tracks to pass across the board. As far as the Cup race goes, I want to be a little reserved with my comments because I don't like being critical of NASCAR. I love NASCAR. That's why I want to work so badly around the sport. And you never like criticizing something that you love so dearly and that you hold so highly in your heart and really in your life. But, a lot of what happened last night, first off, the product for an all-star event should have been far better. I was happy when they moved it from Charlotte, not for the sake of them, but not because I didn't like Charlotte. I just wanted them to rotate the race itself. I thought the all-star event, much like other sports, should have the opportunity to visit different regions, different fan bases, and have a greater reach, and to allow a lot of fans to experience the very unique environment that creates the all-star race. Last year at Texas, I was pretty skeptical. Race ended up being okay. So I didn't think too much of it when they came back this year. It was a rough night for all around. It was a rough night for the tires. It was a rough night for passing. It was a rough night for officiating. I think it really just the combination of everything together made it so much so that I've never seen NASCAR Twitter so unified about anything in a good or bad way. In fact, I'm surprised that 10% said it was a good race in that poll. I expected it to be less, based off of what I've read.
Must have been all Blaney people.
You know what? At the end of the race, the one thing I'll be outright critical about in this is that what NASCAR should have done, they should have had Blaney come down pit road. Don't even chance it. Have Blaney come down pit road, let the team put up the window net, and then let him resume the race from the position he had to pit from. It's the All-Star race. There's no points on the line. It wouldn't be the craziest thing we've ever seen in the All-Star race. In 2001, half the field crashed out on lap 1. There was rain, and NASCAR let them all put out backup cars. Dale Jr. will never let anybody forget that because he feels like after everybody else wrecked, he had the car to beat. And to this day, he still mentions how none of them had to go through tech before the race, before they resumed. But yeah, no, if anything, I think that would have been the proper call. I know that that's what a lot of the talk is around right now about the window net, the safety. Denny Hamlin had some comments after. Blaney deserved to win that race after the events of the accident that involved Kyle Busch and Chastain and Elliott. He definitely had the most consistent car of the night, and definitely by the end of the race, he had it dialed in the best, better than anyone. He was pulling away from Hamlin on old tires when Hamlin had much fresher. So, as far as the future of Texas goes, after seeing the reaction last night, I'd really be curious to see the numbers when Adam Stern puts them out. I don't know if he has already, about viewership and ticket sales. And I'll also be monitoring very closely when the series goes back there in October for the playoff race. That's I don't know. I've not really liked Texas since the reconfiguration. Hopefully there is something that NASCAR and SMI can collaborate to do to fix it. Uh, Truthfully, I wouldn't mind, if they took that Auto Club plan and somehow adapted it to Texas instead. I know it's maybe not the most realistic idea. I wouldn't be opposed to it. I think right now Texas is probably the most likely track, if it were the fans' choice at least, to go, especially after last night. So, I'll kind of leave it at that because like I said, I don't want to get too critical, and I don't want to leave a sour taste in anybody's mouth who doesn't already have one. But certainly, I hope that if anything, NASCAR, the fans, SMI, Goodyear, everyone involved in any part of making the All-Star race what it was this year, I hope they can learn. I hope we can all learn. I hope we as fans can learn to maybe take it a little easier on NASCAR and maybe provide a little bit more creative insight, more ideas on what we want to have it fixed. In turn, hopefully, NASCAR, SMI, will take our word and let it have a little bit larger impact moving forward. Hopefully, Goodyear, whatever's happening with the tires the past few weeks, will have soon been remembered as an isolated issue. I don't know if that will be the case, but hopefully. And if anything, hopefully we can use all this information to learn moving forward for 2023. The schedule is not set in stone yet. The All-Star race is certainly not set in stone yet for 2023. And the tires, I don't know if they need to go back and redevelop them over the course of the off-season or what. But despite all the negativity around the race, it actually may be healthy that we have a race that, in the eyes of the fans, was as poor as it was. This may provide new direction for NASCAR. This may push the industry and the drivers and the teams to new heights. You never know. Sometimes you need that really low in order to have some really high highs. So I'm really hoping for the best out of everything, but it was absolutely concerning, the events of last night, and hopefully things go up.
You're a way more positive person than I'll ever be, I guess, Joe. But the fact of the matter is, NASCAR probably needs you to work for their PR, because you did a really good job there. You did a better job than the Steves would do, or Scott Miller does in regards to some of the totally farcical events that we saw yesterday. There, in general, I mean, I'm going to leave it. I don't want to go down that road. I'm trying to be a better person in that sense. I've already said plenty about Texas Motor Speedway, whether it's on this show, whether it was on Talking in Circles with Clayton, whether elsewhere. I've never been a fan when Goosage was around with all the crap that he did, and they reconfigured it. I don't know how many different times because they screwed it up, and now they have two different types of corners. They made it so that Indy cars can't even race there properly, and IndyCar was their best product, whether it was the IRL crap or even when IndyCar was able to run. It's I don't know. It's just crazy. But I mean, when it comes to the Indy 500, qualifying was amazing and intense, and I just want to go through the starting lineup, the front row for the Indianapolis 500 on Sunday. Scott Dixon with a 4-lap average of 234.046 miles an hour puts it on pole. His teammate and defending series champion Alex Palou finished runner-up finisher, of course, in last year's 500. Second at 233.499. Renus VK gives Ed Carpenter Racing another front row start, 233.385. That seems to be the spot they get, because even when Spencer Pigot drove that car, he qualified third. Ed Carpenter starts fourth. He just got over 233 miles an hour average. Marcus Ericsson, Tony Kanaan round out the Fast Six. Tony Kanaan and his one-off in the American Legion #1 car. Pato Award, Felix Rosenquist, Roman Grosjean, so the two McLaren cars and the first Andretti car. Takuma Sato, who had been fast all week, hit the wall on his qualifying Fast 12 run, but still stayed in it. Was 10th, former two-time winner of the Indianapolis 500. Will Power, Jimmy Johnson is your top 12. David Malukas, the rookie driving for Dale Coyne Racing, who's had a rough year so far. Guy I picked for Rookie of the Year has had a brutal start to the year. He will be starting 13th alongside Joseph Newgarden, who's trying to win the Indianapolis 500 to really solidify himself at Penske forever. Santino Ferrucci starts 15th. He's had a great career at the Indy 500. So he's driving for Brian Reinbold again this year. See what they can do there. Simon Pagenaud, former winner of this race, driving for Meyer Shank, is 16th. J.R. Hildebrand and Connor Daly make up, row 6. Row 7 will be rookie Callum Ilott, former winner Alexander Rossi and Green Rehal. In row 8, Sage Karam, Marco Andretti, Devlin DeFrancesco. So if anyone's betting, he's a caution that's waiting to happen. I don't know what the odds are on that, but likely he'll cause a caution. Then in row 9, Colton Herta. So this row is going to be interesting. Row 9 with Colton Herta, who's run well, qualified well in this race before and has had issues. Scott McLaughlin and the defending race winner trying to win the Borg Warner $400,000 bonus or whatever the heck it is for winning back-to-back, because he was the last one to do it in 01 and 02. Elio Castro-Neves will be starting his defense of the Indy 500 from 27th position. Row 10 will be Kyle Kirkwood, the rookie for AJ Foyt Racing in the 14 car. His teammate Dalton Kellett, who wrecked in practice. Juan Pablo Monterior, trying for his third Indianapolis 500 win, will start 30th for McLaren. In the last row, Christian Lundgaard, Jack Harvey for Ray Hall Letterman Lanigan Racing, and Stefan Wilson, who didn't get to set a time, but because there's only 33 cars, he's in the field. So that's the 33 cars that we'll see. I didn't have the Delta Force intro behind me. I didn't have the nicknames like Brock Beard or any of that. I'm sure he'll probably post that later this week. The Delta Force thing is really cool. So with that, I'm going to call an end to this episode 115 of the GSP. Thanks to Joe and Spencer for coming on to talk about, memories and things, what it means and what this week will be. At least we're getting a little bit of a brief preview of each race. And for Josh, as always, for coming through, being my right-hand man, my tag team partner, and Indy 500 winner now. So there is so maybe we have to go and get another trophy. I know you want to have the belt from the Fall Brawl Fantasy League, but I think we could go and find a trophy on one of those Trophy Smack or whatever, and we can get you a trophy. It won't be a Borg Warner, but maybe something for your iRacing Indy 500 win. You're in the same level as Jimmy Broadbent now, since you've won
Oh
a
yeah, that is true. Yeah, I forgot about that.
you've won an open Indy 500, so you're in the same group
Yeah.
as like Jimmy Broadbent, and he's a professional race car driver
Yeah,
these
he's a
days.
pro
So
racer now. He's sim
yeah,
racer and now he's pro racer. Well, I mean, we'll see. I mean, I had an idea. I mean, at some point later in the year, maybe or at some point, maybe we can. Dale Jr.'s got a Indy car that he didn't even race in real life, but they made die casts out of the iRacing Indy car. Maybe we can get a GSP IndyCar diecast somehow. I don't know where we can get custom IndyCar diecast, but I will try to figure something out.
there are custom. You could sacrifice like a Devlin DeFrancesco car, and it's just the pain of having to pay for a Devlin DeFrancesco car. But or somebody an old super speedway car from a few years ago, and we just have to work on a good scheme, and then I'd buy one. I'd go and buy one. You can buy one. You're going to buy one because you won, and I just want to have it because then I can have it in the background, even though we have everything blanked out here on Discord. But it's like I have my old trophy I put the trophy over there. My Mario Andretti Funko Pop is still behind there. And I have my lanyards from my days when I used to be a proper journalist. I've just become a drunken podcaster now. So with that, I'm gonna go and throw to you, Spencer. Where can we find your work, and where can we follow you this weekend? Since it is Indy 500 week.
Oh, Josh, I'm out here, so if you want me to get you a Borg Warner keychain or trophy, or I mean pin or something, just let me know and I'll make that happen for you. As far as
Yeah,
social
sounds good.
media, it's all at IndyCar 1909 or at Spencer Neff, SpencerNeff. My name 11. Those are the two handles for Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, even though I haven't posted anything on there. Snapchat, same thing. So I'm going to be posting stuff. I have to give a shout out to a couple of my buddies on Twitter. My friend Brian, who's at 500 Indy 1911, actually, is a big sat nerd too, or that guy, sorry, like I am. So if you're not following him, go ahead and check him out. He's always got some pretty cool stuff. He was on, I think it's called the Turn 4 podcast. So that a follow. And then I actually had a suggestion from another friend. His name is at Vincent Venegas, I believe. He's at VIN Designs 2013. He does some really cool driver paintings and stuff. His daughter,
Yep.
Sloan, has made some nice bracelets, and there is a cute video of her with Joseph Newgarden before the GP. He had the suggestion of making a Twitter thread of all the helmets that each driver has. So it's hashtag Indy 500 driver helmet thread or helmet thread. And I'll be posting updates on that throughout the week. And I'll just be kind of posting various stuff about the race and all that over the next week or so. So, anybody who's interested, follow me there.
Yeah, and thanks for coming on, man. Yeah, the helmet thread with you and Vincent has been great. I mean, Vincent does great work. We've been Twitter friends and followers for a while. He is great at his work, and he's a great dad as well as being a great artist. So, and work whatever, but he has a passion for IndyCar racing too. Spencer's been getting them pictures for all the different helmets, and there's been plenty of great helmets coming along here for this Indy 500. I mean, Jimmy throwing back to I think Blake Shelton's grandfathers or something, and his grandfathers, and you have like Tony Kanaan with the Legion. You have what is it, Marcus Ericsson kind of throwing back to old school looks, and also his um, you know Scandinavian background. You have all these other guys that are in there. The helmets are great. So check them out on Spencer's Twitter feed. Joe, where can we follow you for your coverage of NASCAR? It's going to be a busy week, of course, not just the 600, which is the one that matters the most, but there'll be an Xfinity race, which used to have a hooligan race. That was one of the things I loved about the Charlotte Busch Series races back in the day. They used to have the hooligan race to make the back end of the show when they used to have a lot of cars. But the Alsco 300 will be taking place on Saturday. The Truck Series race will be on Friday. So a full weekend at Charlotte Motor Speedway for NASCAR. Where can we follow you? Where can we see your work?
Sure. So head over to Twitter at Passero Jr. That's PASSEROJR. That's where I do all my tweeting, my stage point updates, my live reactions, pretty much my lifeline to connecting with everyone. You can also find my work on beyondtheflag.com. Just yesterday before the All-Star race, we published one of my newest articles. It's a mock-up schedule for 2023 that a lot of people have already told me I made some wrong decisions and I made some right decisions. So some people seem to be pretty heated about it. Others seem to really like it. So head on over, check it out. Let me know what you think. Tweet me at Passero Jr. I don't get many tweets back, so I will reply if I see it. And just thank you guys. Thanks for having me on. I always appreciate coming on here. I have a few projects currently in the works. They're not developed enough to where I can talk about them yet, but I'm hoping they come to fruition this summer. And if so, it's going to expand some of my responsibilities media-wise. So I'm hoping that comes to fruition, and if it does, I'll be sure to let you guys know.
Definitely check out Joe because his passion for the sport, it kind of reminds me of what I was initially as a fan, and even in my time as covering the sport, not only on the NASCAR and IndyCar side. The energy is there and way more eloquent than I'll ever be, way more passionate about it than I'll ever be, I think. But the fact of the matter is, Joe is a great follow, and the interaction is great. And that's the thing with both Spencer and Joe. Interaction with the fans is good. And in this day and age, I mean, even with the way fans are, it's a good thing to have. So thank you, Joe. Thank you, Spencer. And now to our Indy 500 champion. You need to promote your Twitch stream since we have to see that video. I want to see your celebration video, and if it was more Alio, or was it more like I don't know, Rick Mears, where he was dreading having to do the speech while he was leading his Indy 500 when he won in 1991. He was dreading the last 15 laps, thinking about his speeches he was going to have to give, which is one of the funniest things I've ever heard in my life. But it is totally Rick Mears.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have like a celebration like that, but I didn't have the video turned on when I won the race. But I mean, it's basically almost similar. The sounds that came out of my mouth were very similar to Jimmy Broadbent's. I think that's kind of how it was. A lot of just yeah, yes, pumping up my fist up and down, that kind of thing. But we'll talk. I'll show it to you. I'll send you a link here in a minute. But yeah, it's up on the Twitch. The clip of winning the iRacing Open Series Indy 500 and the clip of that last lap, and then also the clip of basically where I effectively won the race. I think in my mind, making effectively the winning pass for lead was for second place. But then the guy that was in the lead had to pit, and then we still had one more pit cycle after that, but was able to keep the lead after that, making that pass and stay out in front. So it was a good thing that I was able to do. I mean, sorry I didn't tell you about it before I ran the race, because this is literally like last minute kind of thing. Like I kind of woke up and I was like, it's at 1 o'clock. Maybe I might do this, and then I did, and then I won. So that's how it goes sometimes. Like I was, No, I told Joe about the fixed Indy Series 500, and I was, thinking that would be my best chance to win, I guess. And then, I was kind of thinking about it over the week. It's like, maybe I'll try, like, because they have these setup shops online where you can, you download a free one, or you can pay a couple of dollars, like $3, to get I guess, the upgraded version. And I did that, and then I was like, maybe I might try this. I don't know. I came on Saturday morning, woke up, and then 1 o'clock rolled or not 1 o'clock, but like getting close to 1 o'clock, I was like, maybe I might do this, and I did. So won the race. So that's sometimes that's how gaming is. You kind of just do it when you feel like it, and you end up actually winning the whole damn thing. So, of course, you can watch all that and the half of the race, because I didn't start recording until lap 94, because I was like, I didn't want to record because I was like, I don't know, I don't know if I might win this, and I kind of just want to, just be here on my own. And then I was in second, and I had led a couple of laps already, at lap 94, and then we had a caution. I was like, all right, I'll pull up the stream program, and I did. And then you have the last 106 laps of the race to watch if you want on my Twitch, which you can find the Twitch at Twitch TV/usailor2. Go in there and watch the Open Series last 106 laps from lap 94 all the way to the end of that, and then also the Fixed Series full race 200 laps that I did last week, or 2 weekends ago now. You can watch there. And then, of course, my other, basically that's that. And Twitter, of course, you can watch or follow me on Twitter and see what I have to say about the racing, and about all the other things that I'm interested in. And then, of course, we got our YouTube channel, which we're, posting these video feeds on, and you can follow that on YouTube at Grip Strip Podcast there. Subscribe to our page, subscribe there, and like our videos, comment, and, uh, keep on eye out on for more videos as we continue throughout the year. And of course, got this video that we'll produce later, and then we meet up later in the week, we'll have that video up too. And then anything else that we have, any bonus content we might have, which got something in the works for that, from our last conversation, Joe, we had. I'm gonna post that one up, and maybe post the one that we had earlier today. So that's that's where you can look at all our stuff and everything. So yeah, that's all I got.
Yeah, there we got plenty of stuff going on. We're on a lot of different platforms. I don't know what's been going on with listenership, but hopefully we can kind of get this summer rolling. We'll go and get people back on it. Even if you're not going to get back on it, I don't. At the end, it does bother me, but it doesn't bother me, because in the end, it's our deal, and the people that are listening do like the product. I've gotten plenty of compliments from all different walks of life. People who are not racing fans are willing to listen to the show. So that tells you all you need to know, and mostly what we talk about is racing. So for that, we're thankful. Thanks to everybody that's here. Of course, my man Josh, Joe, Spencer. You can follow me on Twitter at Philip G. Matthew. You can follow us at Grip Strip Pod on Twitter. You can find the Grip Strip Podcast on Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, Spotify, Podbean, Pandora, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, TuneIn, Verbal, and YouTube. Recently, of course, we've had our episodes on there over the last few months. Josh has been spearheading that, and also sharing our feeds on the Twitter page there, Grip Strip Pod. So with that, episode 115 is complete. We'll be back later in the week for episode 116 to preview the Monaco Grand Prix, the Indianapolis 500, Coca-Cola 600, kind of get a brief recap of the races that took place this past weekend, and get into anything else that'll be going on this coming weekend and last weekend in episode 116. So with that, we thank you for listening or watching the Grip Strip Podcast, and we'll see you around later in the week. Take care.